Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Saturday night, so you know what that means. It's time for Leaf Talk. And of course, when we talk about the Leafs, we talk with none other than Aaron William Freeland. Welcome to the Spanglish Sports World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Leaf Talk, joining me is, of course, Aaron William Freeland, and we have a very, very, very special guest coming in the first intermission, and his name is Gary Grube. And the reason he's coming in is to talk about the breaking news of the Toronto Rock moving to Hamilton. But oddity of oddity, they'll still be called the Toronto Rock. Aaron, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Frank. How are you today?
I am so right now I'm okay, but I'm very upset because one of our co-hosts has COVID-19. His name is David Morisuti. For those of you that don't know him, he does the CFL talk show with me on Mondays, and it came in through family. It does spread, and now with the new different variants that are around, it spreads rather easily, quickly, and I hope he's okay. I had a talk with him. It's unnerving, the situation. I can't express to you folks how well David's like a son of mine. I've had him around for a long time, and he is an up and coming media guy. I'm a history media guy. I'm history. So it bothers me that he's been affected by this. Someone very close to me that I talk to all the time. So yeah, it's a little tough. Not as much for me as it is for him.
Understandably so, and I'm sorry to hear that Dave has been taken ill by this. Hoping for all the best for him going forward.
Yes, we do. And as I said, we have Gary Grube in the first intermission. We're going to talk about the Rock. And right now, let's talk about the Maple Leafs. And of course, those wonderful Maple Leafs, when it doesn't matter, they're playing well. Let's hope they can carry that into the, when it matters there, Aaron.
Yeah, everybody was all upset about how everything was going. And I know we had mentioned that they were playing a team that has usually given them troubles, particularly of late, dropping 2 games to them after the Vancouver Canucks hadn't played in a number of weeks. But it does look like they managed to get everything under control because they pulled out a 5-1 victory last week, shortly after we spoke for last week's show. So,
and we said they needed to bury them.
Yeah.
And they did.
And they did a very good job of tamping down the soil after putting them 6 feet under, especially with that 5-1 win. Very grateful to see that.
Yeah, and you know what? They didn't score the first goal in that game either. They answered with 5 straight goals. So, they didn't let the fact that they got behind get to them, which is important. Goaltending was good and getting better. It's been getting better, since the dip, if I can call it that, Aaron.
Oh, most definitely. And Jack, I think, has one of the best records for an NHL goalie in recent memory, sitting where he is. When you think about it, the Leafs have only lost 2 games in regulation time in the past 20-odd games. So that's an accomplishment.
It's a very good accomplishment, of course. And then they met the Montreal Canadiens in their second game this week on May 3rd. And this one didn't turn out so good.
Well, I don't think it was exactly as they expected. And you got to admit, it's a great couple of first games for Cole Caulfield there. The new rookie that had been anointed their savior. They seem to run into the same cycles as Toronto does. Find a young player, build him up, and then when he doesn't perform as expected, tear him down and trade him.
Well, Kotkaniemi fits into that category, in all truth.
Yeah. No, Jesperi Kotkaniemi was another one of their bright lights that was supposed to lead the team out of the wilderness and back to the promised land, but unfortunately that didn't quite work out either. I am happy for Cole, though. His joy at scoring in overtime was something to see.
Yeah, twice comeback victories. Good for them. Matthews scored again in this game. Riley decided to put the puck in the net after I think it was like 15, 20 games. You know, there's a lot to be said for team play, and they showed in this game. They again, just like they did with Vancouver, they just skated Montreal into the ground.
No, they really very much did, and it was good to see. Um, the thing is now they've got one more game against the Habs tonight, and that's it for the season. But what we're potentially seeing here is the first round matchup. The way that Montreal has been playing of late, and the way that Winnipeg has been playing of late, means it's a little bit of a race to fourth place at this point. But it looks, for all intents and purposes, like the Leafs are going to be facing Montreal in the first round. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, obviously. But them putting the icing on the cake with that victory is a good sign for them.
Well, you're not you can't be accused of not telling the truth. The fact is, you know, for years Leaf fans used to consider the Leafs really good, but you know, the team really didn't reflect what really good was. For example, the next game they played Montreal, they won 5-2. Another one where they just came out of the gate in a hurry and really went after Montreal, and you know, they were they did a great job of making Montreal's weaknesses show, and when Montreal doesn't score first, they're not good at chasing the game, Aaron, are they?
No, they really aren't. And one of the saving graces for Montreal in this game was the fact that the Leafs were again 0 for on the power play. Had the power play actually been clicking for the Maple Leafs, things might have been much worse. But as it was, 4 goals in the first period, not a good start for Caden Primo. But you know, it is what it is. Second game of a back-to-back, they finally put Jake Allen in, who backstopped them the rest of the way. And you know, tough starts for young goalies.
You know, when you're talking about young goalies, you're talking about two teams that are playing with their B goaltenders. You know, that's the other thing here. Neither of them are playing their number one goaltenders.
No, this is very true. And Freddie Anderson is currently down with the Marlies for a conditioning stint. He played his second game, which ended in a 4-4 tie. I think based on the season, and I haven't seen this before, but the game was actually tied at the end, and that's basically how it ended. But
now he played.
Anderson looked to play.
Did he play the whole game?
He did play the whole game. Yes.
So he let in 4 goals. Do you know how many shots he had on him?
Give me just a second to pull that up. They don't often show it on. They don't often show it on the feed, but I can take a quick look at the stats here. There we go. Yeah, 5-4 in the shootout. Sorry, so the feed wasn't adjusting correctly. But we're looking at a total of 39 shots for the Manitoba Moose. 4 goals on 39.
And who won?
Manitoba 5-4 in the shootout.
Okay, so he let in more shootout goals than the opponent goaltender.
Yes.
Yeah. So he didn't win the game. So now we've got him. You know, he has not played for a few months. So looking at his health and looking at the opportunity that he has to be successful, it's going to be a tough road, Aaron. As best I can tell, looking back, as long as Campbell's playing the way he is, and Riddick did not play badly. So the scenario that we saw recently, with the way Campbell was playing before he picked it back up again, a lot of eggs were shifting into the Anderson basket. But now, as a fan and as a guy, you know, that's following what's going on, here he is now. He's played these 2 games, and he could play another. And there's a special path that he could play a couple more games. In other words, next week to play again. They could extend him being able to play these games, because technically, usually it's just these 2 games he's allowed to play, and then he goes back up to the team. But because of the long-term injury reserve, he might be able to play a couple more games there. Aaron, it sounds to me like he needs to play a couple of games. It sounds to me like he hasn't hit his, 4 goals. I don't care how bad the his defense was, because I did hear that the first goal or two were not his fault. They were the kind that bang bang and short side,
And cross
opposite
ice
side.
and
Yeah, you're not those. You're a goaltender, so I'm going to be sympathetic at this point and say that those are the kind of goals that not every goaltender can stop every time. But what we're seeing in the National Hockey League today, and this to be true, we've seen goalies do that. They stop those plays. Even Campbell has, right?
No, we definitely see that. And again, the issue that Anderson was having, I believe,
Have
was
it.
lower body.
Knee,
So
knee.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not just about getting in shape. And what they mean by getting in shape, what we can also say is for the goaltender, being Anderson, trusting his knee again. The trouble with when you have an injury is you try not to use it. Henceforth, the problem playing goal, because it's very, they call it being quiet in the net. Well, when you're quiet in the net, you just look systematic and you're playing the game just smoothly without any kind of panic, right? There's no panic in your game. So unfortunately, the panic that he has in his game is going to be below the surface and about that knee that's bad, that he's trying to favor and help. And that creates a problem in itself.
And when you do tend to move with a little bit of reluctance because you're not 100% sure you can trust the knee, and speaking personally, I've had those issues myself. It is very difficult. It is very difficult to get back up to game speed again and to get yourself going again. So, if they can extend him any further, that would be fantastic. I think he actually is able to play 3 games. So
Okay.
he's got one more day out down there on a conditioning stint. The Marlies have another 7 or 8 games remaining at this point. So there is a little bit of time there. We've also noticed that the Leafs have taken Sandin out of the lineup. That is for salary concerns. So once Anderson is ready to come back, if they need him to play a game, they'll have the space to actually pay him.
No, they won't have it. They won't have it. I disagree with you. They won't have it. They have to find more. The cap that they say with Sandin will not cover Anderson. They'll have to do even more, and that's because of the $5 million. And Sandin doesn't earn that much. The suspicion is among some of the experts outside of this group, you and I, is that we could be seeing Riley Nash, and that's why Sandin is being sent down. So, in case Riley Nash they want to get him some work before the playoffs, get him on the ice a little bit. Much less difficult to do because of his salary compared to, of course, Anderson's. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Well, it's obviously something they can work around. They've done it before. I'm pretty sure they can do it again. For the most part, their salary manipulation this time around seems to be more above board as opposed to the times of Loophole Lou and Robidaw Island. So there is that as well.
Yeah, well, that's still a situation that they may have to deal with. They're doing it a little more upfront with Sandin. They're not creating an injury, if you will. There's some questions about that. I'm sure at some point the league's going to start. There's going to be enough complaints at some point. But then again, when you think about it, is all the teams are able to do this. It isn't so specific to one team doing it and others not. It's not one of those situations where a team is bending the rules and other teams wish they could, but they can't. This is a rule that's easy to bend for everybody come playoff time. So it's all about that trade you make, that final season trade and getting people in for the playoffs, because that's, then the race gets different. Then everybody gets the opportunity to play. So the games for the Leafs are really well. The power play, again, is struggling, not finding a way. They're thinking about putting Sandin there. Now they can't experiment with him because he's not here. So enter, back to old plans. Do you think they need to, and can they do this, is bring a new coach in? Because I don't think the coach that's coaching their power play right now is able to produce a good power play. I don't think it's the players, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, Manny's been there since the start of the year, and the power play was going gangbusters at the start of the year. I'm just not sure what changed.
Well, I'm going to tell you what changed, and this is just an opinion. old management leaves for whatever reason. What they did well was visible, on a team. Now you bring a new guy in, he starts changing things. We're looking at the change, and the change is ineffective power play. That's my opinion. You can't have these kinds of players and not have the ability to have a good power play. It's either that, or when people talk power play, the players in the power play are too stressed out to do something. But that again is coaching as well. I mean, Aaron, to me, it's coaching. It's too consistently bad. Like, if it would hover here and there, move there and there, I would say it was the players. But this is too consistently a bad power play. It's bad. It's not just not good, it's bad. And the only reason it's reasonable when you look at the stats and where they sit in the grand scheme of things, it's because they were up here and they're playing so bad down here. The up here is getting dragged over to here, and all those good power play averages are being frittered away. No, for me, they need a new voice in the power play, and that might be the surprise. They're not going to tell everybody that they've improved the power play or what they're going to do to change it at this time, because they don't want to give anybody any evidence, especially Montreal. They're not going to show their new tricks and waste them on the regular season that is meaningless at this point. Not meaningless as a whole, but meaningless at the end of the regular season.
I'd like to see them just take the shackles off and just say, hey, you guys know how to play a power play. We're not going to try to get you to do structures or systems. Here's 5 guys, go. And I'd like to see that just for a couple of games, just for the absolute chaos that it would sow amongst the rest of the league.
In other words, what you're saying is the coach leaves the room, and then you tell those 5 guys, those 2 groups of 5, come up with some ideas.
Yeah, have as much fun as you want. Have as much fun as you want.
And then the first 2 or 3 power plays, give it a shot. Give it 2, 3 power plays. Give it a full game. Especially in the like at the end of the season, it might be an idea. They're playing Winnipeg. Now they still could play Winnipeg in the first round.
It's a very likely first round opponent. So
right. So you don't want to tip your hand with them, and it's going to be an interesting finish, to say the least.
For sure. Cannot disagree with you on that one.
Okay, let's go to the intermission, and we'll bring in Gary Grube to talk about, what's going on, Gary.
Hey, Frank. Good to see you. It's not a Thursday, so you're looking well for Saturday. Aaron, how are you?
Go ahead. I just want to say this with darn it. We knew this story. Both of us had a hint of it was happening during the show on Thursday. You, I have to admit, more than I. I had seen something, and it just went, and then we talked after the show, and I said, did you see that? And you said, oh yeah, I saw that. In fact, you said some of your sources that you weren't sure about, because the news is pretty drastic. You heard rumblings, right? Of the Toronto Rock moving to Hamilton.
Yes, I heard that, and all of a sudden I was starting to get private messages, and, confirms and things like that. So I was like, "Oh, this looks like it's a done deal." Well, we all have to wait for the confirmation Monday night in Jamie's town hall, but I think the teeth are out of the lion at this stage.
The secret's out, and we're not hearing any denial, right? That's clue number 1.
Big. That's big right there. The Rock have done nothing. They've said absolutely nothing, really hoping that this all kind of swept away. I'm curious what's going on at the Hamilton Spectator. Do these people still have jobs? Whoops.
Well,
hit the wrong button. Retract.
I don't know. I don't know that anybody should get fired about it, but about this situation. But I do think, in the case of the only people that are being hurt by this are the Toronto Rock. It's not Hamilton at all. I see it as them being excited about getting a team, and in that excitement, when a news story crosses your desk, Gary, you don't sit there and go, nah, you know what? Let's help the team out and not tell people what's going on. Right?
Of course.
That's not the way it works. I have a story.
But you gotta look at the financials of this thing. It's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
As much as love having the team in Toronto, if I were the owner and I'm hemorrhaging money year after year after year, of course I'm looking for a way to make money. Especially Jamie as a businessman, he wants to have black, not red. Red's not a good color in business.
Other than on uniform.
He said it before in interview after interview that he needs 12,000 fans to break even at Scotiabank Arena. They're not getting anywhere near 12,000 fans. Last season that they played, the average was between 8,000 and 9,000. Yeah. If you were in Rochester, hey, that's a great, damn near sellout. But here in Toronto, with the rent at about 45,000 per night, and you being just a tenant and not getting concessions, if I would want to bring an old team up, it reminds me an awful lot of the Boston Blazers, which don't exist anymore, who had that awesome deal at the TD Garden of being a renter with no concessions and no parking. And where are they?
And no history.
They have no history now. Unless the Bruins want to take them now, which is another rumbling for another time. But, they're gone. Way of the dodo. They couldn't afford to stay there. And on a gate-driven league, the little bit of money they're getting from internet or advertising isn't going to suffice. Now, if you can go down the road just a little bit to still keep the majority of your Toronto base engaged, because it's only a 45-minute drive, it takes me half an hour to get downtown in traffic anyways. So if you're going to add 15 minutes to my drive, okay, and you're going to go and do basically, I would say 1/5 of the arena cost and get concessions and probably somewhere in there parking. That's
and the cost to the clients are less too, because I believe the concessions are cheaper. I believe the parking is cheaper, and it's just a better deal for everybody all around. The only problem is, and Gary, we talked about this, the people who are east of the arena in Toronto.
But here's the other thing too that you can think about. Aaron, you remember years ago that the Toronto Rock used to have that deal with the Harbor Castle for for tickets and a room for about $135 or whatever for that game. I'm pretty sure that they can wangle it with one of the hotels in a downtown area, that if you want to come in, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot cheaper than $135 a night, that you can get a game ticket and a hotel room and do that. So I'm sure that that's already in the works if this is going the way we think it is. So I'm pretty sure that they got their bases covered.
That's a great thing, especially because with rock fans, they do tend to celebrate. Jared Harrison Company. I got a jersey back here that basically represents the love and desire to party with the team after the game and not having to drive after that. It's a great idea. Aaron, you had a chance to sit in the gondola. You were a scorekeeper at the Toronto Rock games. You've seen the history of it. Give us your view. Were you there after Jamie bought the team or long after he bought the team?
I actually started working up in the booth in about 2015. So he bought the team a couple of years before, and things have sort of settled into a rhythm at that point. I worked with Barks before he had his stroke, and then they decided after he'd recovered that they weren't going to bring him back. So I was up in the booth with Mr. Hancock for a couple of years there. But you got the impression that the Rock were basically treading water at certain points. You look down in the lower bowl, and I could hear Mike muttering to himself underneath his breath, and kind of figured it was something along those lines. That the team, while the product on the floor was entertaining, it just wasn't drawing as much as they needed to in order for them to actually break even. So,
yeah, that's the tough part. I went to the games, and I've seen and sat with Gary, and I also went before I knew Gary and went to the games as well. And the fans disappeared year after year after. There's like a 5-6 year run where they consistently lost their fans. I know I think it was only a coincidence that the team had a bit of a downfall and wasn't playing so well for a couple of years, but it seemed to me that in conjunction with whatever fact that whatever it is that happened. Can you put your fingers on it? I just didn't see that Toronto and the media around Toronto paid attention to what the Rock were doing.
Yeah,
even less than the Argos, which have their own issues.
It seemed to be, and this was a common complaint, that the actual in-arena atmosphere was driving some people away. And suggestions were made to the team about how to correct this, but in their infinite wisdom, the team decided, no, we're going to keep doing the same old thing. We don't necessarily need to listen to those who have been paying the bills, and as a result of this seeming inattention, and I'm sure this will get addressed at the town hall meeting on Monday as well, but this seeming inattention to the desires and the wants of the fans will probably, reflected in the fact that attendance dropped consistently year over year.
Yeah, it was
the product on the floor was just fine, but
you also have to remember that he cut ties with the OLA and all the minor league lacrosse and having all the teams. And remember, if you get the kids, you get the families too. So you're not selling just one ticket like to some adult who's going to come there for beer. You're going to talk about getting five tickets, 6 tickets sold for whatever the purpose is there.
Absolutely. All right, Gary, stick around. We'll have you back in the second intermission. Let's go now to our producer, Brian. Let's go to our second period, where we like to talk about the Leafs and the upcoming games that they have. And Aaron, they're playing Montreal tonight. It's the last time they'll be playing Montreal. It's obviously going to be an interesting game tonight.
Definitely. This is the third game in a row that they're playing Montreal. So, in a nutshell, we're basically looking at a miniature playoff series here. So the series is currently split. They lost in overtime 3-2. They won the other night. So now we're looking at keeping an eye on a few different players here. Players to keep an eye out for are going to be Suzuki, Toffoli, and Petrie. Over the past 5 games, Suzuki's had 8 points. Tyler Toffoli has had 3 goals, and Petrie has had 6 assists. On the Toronto side of things, it's all Matthews and Marner. In the past 5 games, Mitch Marner's had 7 points. Matthews has had 6 goals, and Marner has had 5 assists. So, he finally passed that 40-goal mark, and with a couple of games left, people are hoping he can at least get to 45.
So it'll be Galchenyuk, Tavares, and Nylander. They'll be staying together. Engvall, Kerfoot, and Mikheyev, they'll be staying together. Jason Spezza, Adam Brooks, and Wayne Simmons, they'll be staying together. And the Morgan Riley, TJ Brody, Jake Muzzin, Justin Hull. Ben Hutton moves in, and with Travis Dermott. And I got to say, I was really pleased with Travis Dermott's defensive play. His offensive acumen has improved, and he's made some pretty confident plays. He looks fairly confident out there. That's been the biggest problem with him is trying real hard and not accomplishing, what he needs to accomplish. And sometimes he was the weakest link in, the chain that is the Leaf defense. But he's looked pretty good the last couple of games. And Hutton is a guy who has a little bit of sandpaper and a lot of experience.
No, and it's good to see Hutton drawing in again. The good thing is I didn't notice him the last time he played.
That's
and
good.
That to me is the hallmark of a competent defenseman is if you don't notice him.
The only people you want to see even less are the referees. Referees, defensemen, and goaltenders are hit and miss, right? They go from they swing from one side to the other. But yeah, no, Hutton. I like him. He's a guy that can be very physical, and that's something the Leafs need in the event that things tend that way. We have seen how this team has changed in that regard with the bringing in of Simmons, and it's not a bad thing, and we as hockey fans this week were given a reminder about physical play and how you're forcing the other team to stand up because the league's not going to get in the way, and if that's a precursor to what's going to happen in the playoffs, Aaron, all I can say is Leaf fans are saying, thank goodness we have our guys, right?
As we get closer to the end of the season, you see things round into playoff shape, as it were. And yeah, I think what we saw between the Capitals and Rangers is pretty indicative of that. Whistles go into pockets, rules get forgotten or tossed out wholesale, and we're at where we're at.
That's the way it seems to go. So what do you think of Thornton moving up with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner? He really likes playing with them. They like playing with him. At least that's what we hear and see publicly.
I don't object to that. I thought Galchenyuk was a better match with Matthews and Marner, but the way that Tavares has responded to having Galchenyuk on his wing in the past couple of games means to me that we've got a couple interchangeable pieces. There is the question, of course, as to what happens once Zach Hyman comes back, and he was actually one of the players out at the optional skate this morning.
Yes.
So we'll see how that goes. Players that were
Nash.
out.
So was Nash, by the way.
Yep, Riley Nash was skating, as well as Nick Foligno. Foligno, I don't think took too many shots. I know that
He skated alone. And he skated alone.
But he's had an upper body injury, so that's what the team has said. Everybody thought it was. I thought he tweaked a knee or an ankle or something like that. But who knows? It's one of those injuries of undetermined origin at this point.
When it first was mentioned, they said it was day to day, and the first day was 2 days.
Yeah,
it was day to day, but 2 days today. So it's like taking your pills, right?
Yeah.
The first two, you take the first two right away just to get yourself going on the medication.
I got to say, it was nice to see Thornton, Spencer, Brooks, Sandin, Liljegren, Nesson, Engvall, Galchenyuk, Hutton, Kerfoot, Campbell, and Rittich out this morning. At least those guys were out for a little 5-on-5 action. I think they may have scrimmaged this morning as well. Good to see that the older fellas, Thornton and Spezza, are getting out there and getting their time in before going down for a nap this afternoon after the chicken cacciatore. And they should be good to go for game time.
Yeah, and it's important to note, too, that the Leafs have a great practice facility, which I took part in building. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. They have the ice pad that is the American Hockey League ice pad, and so those players that you're talking about, the guys backing up the team, everybody can go out and skate and do their thing and then come back in. So meetings, all that kind of stuff. It's seamless. It's fantastic. It's a great thing that the Leafs have. It helps, and it's attractive to players when they come to the team, because we see it with the Blue Jays. If you have a good facility that helps you to prepare for games, because anything that helps you be a better hockey player or a better baseball player is on your side, because you're not always playing for the contract you just signed. You're playing for the contract that you're planning on signing, the next one. So it's really important that the organization have a good plan on how and the infrastructure to produce better players. And the Leafs, it's proven to be true. They have a great relationship with their American Hockey League team. And I know, as an American Hockey League fan, full well the maturation that takes place within the American Hockey League for players who seem to come to the Maple Leafs seamlessly and then go to other teams. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in as an extra little.
Well, there was actually something I wanted to tag on to there, Frank, with regards to keeping your farm team close. It turns out the Utica Comets have received approval to be transferred out to Abbotsford, BC. The Utica Comets are, of course, Vancouver's farm team. And the the New Jersey Devils have actually trademarked and stamped the name the Utica Devils, which means Binghamton will no longer be, and they'll be moving to Utica, which is that much closer to New Jersey. So
right.
They're all consolidating, as you can see. So the next move I expect will be for Stockton to move up into Alberta to be closer to Calgary, which is their big team.
Absolutely, and it matters a lot. So coming up, they end the week with Edmonton and Winnipeg. Winnipeg, a possible opponent. What do you think they do in this? I mean, I know what Keefe said. I listened to his interviews and listened to what he had to say. He feels the games are spread out enough that, in fact, He's not concerned about sitting anyone out. You know, there are always nagging injuries, but the time between the games affords them to deal with nagging injuries. There's no back-to-backs. That's a big concern. You know, so goaltending won't be strained. His concern, because he can say that, then what he says is, I'm worried about too much time off. So he's already talking about what's going to happen, because the next week, Vancouver is going to make up for all the games of which the Leafs don't play one against Vancouver. They have an extra week of play. They go till Friday, you know, so they're going to be, and those games are not guaranteed to be played, from what I could tell from when I was looking at on my smartphone. I'm not so smart, but they said to be confirmed, to be announced, which means that if those games do not matter, they may not be played.
Vancouver is mathematically eliminated by either the Leafs getting a point, I believe, and then losing in overtime in conjunction with Calgary winning a sack race against Ottawa, and Edmonton and Winnipeg playing games of cornhole for 3 consecutive Sundays. Then yes, they probably won't play those games.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like Vancouver does play, they do play Edmonton. But Edmonton doesn't seem to be as big an issue as, you know, Montreal and Calgary, for one, and for two, Winnipeg and Montreal, right? So Edmonton's not really in a position to move. It's Edmonton, Montreal, and a very long shot. In fact, it'd probably be over after today with Calgary. So they might not even need to play those games, Aaron.
Now, and from what I'm looking at here, Toronto, Edmonton, and Winnipeg, again, have all clinched. The last question is Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver. And I think any combination of Montreal getting a point in this upcoming game would probably lock Vancouver out, which means they wouldn't necessarily have to play those remaining games.
And the biggest reason they don't have to play those remaining games, oh, yeah, there's no fans. They don't have to refund tickets.
No. There's no sort of revenue concerns like that to worry
other
about.
than advertising and TV, but they've gone by already. So that's the interest in fans watching the games that they know mean nothing. That's not a good deal either, and I don't think advertisers are interested in benefiting in that way. They probably just look for a refund, which is that would be all worked out with the playoffs coming and such. You know, everybody's got to take a hit, right? That's the way it works. As long as the fans don't take a hit, because if they had paid for tickets, then it would have been an issue.
And most definitely. So at this point, like you mentioned with the TBD up there, it may not be necessary for them to close out the season at all. I, personally speaking, I would like to see Vancouver in it, but that may not necessarily happen. So.
All right, let's go to our second intermission. And as promised, we're going to continue our conversation on the breaking story that is the Toronto Rock moving. We talked about what happened, how it happened, why we know it happened, the reasons for it. Now I'm interested in having a conversation with you guys about what does this mean to lacrosse in Southern Ontario. Here's what I'm going to throw out there. Yes, I would like to see Toronto to have a team, but let me ask you something, guys. With what you know about lacrosse, there are some junior teams east of Toronto. Do you think they might be willing to develop a relationship like a team like Peterborough, maybe getting an NLL lacrosse team? Are they big enough to do something like that? Is the arena big enough?
I don't think the arena is big enough, but I do think that they could get a following that's big enough. Memorial only holds about 3,300 people, right? So it's on the and if you were talking about major series lacrosse, it's humongous. If you're talking about NLL, it's
what about Oshawa? What about Oshawa?
Oshawa's arena is big enough,
right? It's about 10, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, that'd be about the same size as a Ricoh Coliseum. It's about the same size as what Rochester has with the Blue Cross Arena. I'm pretty sure it's the same size as San Diego and Halifax have. So it would work.
I say that because then you would have two sets of fans divided by Toronto.
It's a great idea.
As long as it doesn't turn into a Jets-Giants situation, I think we'd be just fine with that.
Okay, what the heck does that mean?
One team is good and the other is crap.
Oh,
they're also playing in the same stadium too.
Well, here's why I think it would work. you don't have to teach the Peterborough people about lacrosse. You wouldn't have to teach even the Oshawa people, because Oshawa is pretty good in the lacrosse world. The only reason that we don't hear about the Oshawa part is because the Peterborough is so big, right, Gary? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you also have the Coburg people too.
Absolutely.
And, with the Kodiaks and that, and it might actually bolster the Kodiaks for the summertime if you start getting the people in Coburg. And that's
You're getting my point.
Involved.
You're getting my point. At the end of the day, what has to happen with lacrosse is the National Lacrosse League. It is the big light, that is bright in the winter, right? But then if you can find if Oshawa could try getting a team and then have all those other teams, like you said, they can relate to them. Now, with Jamie moving the team, the Toronto Rock, to Hamilton, he's still the same distance from Oakville, where he makes a pretty good penny with his organization, the leagues that he's creating, the different fundamental teachings that go on there. It is the middle of a lacrosse world there, right? So he's not any further away because he moves from Toronto to Hamilton, right? So it doesn't impact his grassroots, does it?
No, not at all. And in fact, if you remember correctly, one of the reasons why he built the Rock facility in the first place was MLSC was going to charge him for practice time.
Right.
So enough of this. I'm going to build my own facility. I'm going to develop this. And so now he's got a state-of-the-art facility with 2 carpeted rinks and a field outside that's, good for field lacrosse as well. He's really developed that whole general area. So, it works. It works.
I know you've been there, Aaron, too, and what it does mean is that he has 2 worlds that he's dealing with. He has the pro world and he has the amateur world, right? And neither needs the other. They're independent of each other, in my opinion. I don't know if either of you guys can answer that question, if you understand what I'm saying. In other words, if the Rock folded tomorrow, it's a standalone product that he has in Oakville.
Well, you also got to remember
the track feeds the track. Sorry, Gary, didn't mean to interrupt there, but the track basically feeds the track. I mean, it employs a lot of the Rock players, and they get secondary employment through that. And the Toronto Rock at the end of the day are a nice little add-on, but most of them still have their own independent careers and show up on the weekends through the teaching and that sort of thing. So the Rock no longer being in Toronto really doesn't affect them as much as people might think. Sure, it's nice to play at the Scotiabank Arena and to get crowds of 8,000 or 9,000 people, but I can make the same dosh going against traffic to Hamilton, which is a lot easier drive because people aren't going out to Hamilton. They're all coming into Toronto. I'm going against traffic. It makes my commute to work that much easier for weekend games.
Well, think about one other
Gary,
thing.
go ahead. No.
Is that the one thing that they always had to fight with is Leaf Saturday night games.
Absolutely.
So you had trouble getting people in anyways from the 905s because they weren't coming in Friday evening, or they weren't staying downtown Friday evening because they wanted to go home. Well, if you're going to be the major tenant in First Ontario Place, you're going to be that Saturday evening tenant. Most of those games are going to be Saturday nights. You might want to put a couple of Sunday afternoon ones to get the kids. And there you go. You don't have to worry about having your fans try and drive that trek to Hamilton Friday night rush hour. So,
and the other thing to
go ahead.
The other thing to consider as well is the big OHL night, especially for TV, is TSN OHL Fridays.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
See, okay. And that's where I was going to go. I was going to go to the thing, and Gary mentioned earlier about if they can play any night, and if they have the choice, and if they can play Saturday, people, like you said, Gary, they can rent a hotel room because they love to party with the players. So, you don't have to drive back, and the hotel costs won't be as much. The parking won't be as much. I'm not saying it's going to be a wash at all. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is a lot of the hassle of going to Hamilton, you're going to say, I'm paying less for parking, I'm paying less for food, and I could pay less for a hotel. And when I put everything together, I might be spending an extra $30 for the group. Because if a family goes, it's not a question of one person per hotel room. So you could rent a hotel room for 3, 4, maybe even 5 people, right? And you could stay in the hotel. So that extra cost which when you take into account how much less you're paying for parking, how much less you're paying for food, and probably how much less you're paying at the bar for the beer or whatever that you're getting too, because it's cheaper there than it is downtown Toronto. I don't know if I'm jumping to conclusions here, but once you figure it out, you're paying an extra $25-$30 for the hotel room.
Yeah. I have one other point is you're flying into players on Friday where they're not rushed to get to the arena to make the game. You can have your practice on Friday, and you can have your game day on Saturday, and you can have a relaxed team that's rested playing Saturday night.
And there's an airport in Hamilton.
Even better.
Right? And there's an
That's
airport
where I fly.
and the flights are cheaper. So now what I've established here, and what the final point I wanted to make, team in Peterborough, East End, Oshawa, whatever. Now, what does the owner of the Rock say? I think he says everything we just said. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
Let's be honest here. He's going to have to deal with the fact that I didn't want to tell you. I wanted to tell you folks first. Word got out. I'm sorry that you found out the way you did, but I was going to tell you anyway. But I want you to know that this is going to be good for all of us. And that's going to be the tone of this meeting, I believe, because it's the only thing that can happen based on fact and what we know is a fact, guys, because we live in this, you guys lived more in lacrosse than I did, but me, the little bit that I've done, I can see that this can work. It's just a question. That's why I came up with the Oshawa folks. Carry on.
I like the idea of Oshawa, and I think that probably could work. I hope the league is looking into something like that, and I hope they have a viable group that can actually sustain this thing. Because remember, the MO of the league now is either they have pockets as deep as Joseph Tsai,
right,
or they're an NHL or NBA or both franchise that has control of their arena. That's the MO. They don't want renters. They want people who can control their dates, that they can get prime dates and prime attendance for that matter. And it'd be nice if you had an NHL or NBA team so that you have a season ticket holder base already to draw from.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping that it would be the group that has the Oshawa Generals that would be the ones that would be looking at this, maybe in conjunction with Peterborough.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's somebody with money that might go a professional team. I might be interested. And I wouldn't be surprised that if I like I said, I mean, I still don't think MLSC is out of the question. But, that's just me. Aaron, final word to you.
I'm just wondering to myself, I would love to see lacrosse expand. I would love to see another team come in. The question becomes, is it perceived as a slap in the face to Toronto residents if Toronto and MLSC actually get a team? That's the other thing that you have to consider here. And how shortchanged will Toronto fans feel if there's a team in Oshawa and a team in Hamilton, but nothing in the center of the universe?
Well, it is what it is. The fact remains we got to go. So I said you were going to have the last word. I think I'm going to end up having the last word here. The problem is that lacrosse is a grassroots sport in Ontario. In effect, it is not built to be in Toronto in the sense that in the expensive world that is Toronto. It's a grassroots game. The players fly from their jobs to play the game. The organizations are local, most of them. Toronto has some great lacrosse. Toronto Beach is great, fantastic, right? But they have to live within a budget. Lacrosse players live within the budget. The fans live within a budget. Why is anyone surprised that Jamie Dowick and the Toronto Rock have to live within a budget?
It's a good point. Very good point.
Okay,
Final thought.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm just surprised it's taken this long. I thought they would have moved a couple of years back.
Well, it is what it is, guys. And for those of you that are interested, we'll carry on this conversation on Thursday. Hopefully, we can find some people that can help us from their perspective. Gary, we'll look to see if anybody out there that we can bring in to discuss this and get another understanding of it. And we'll learn a lot from that meeting on Monday, and we'll let you all know on our Thursday show at 4:00, NLL Talk. Gary, thanks for taking time out of your Saturday to join us, but this was a big story.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys, for having me on the show. Great show. Love doing it. Like to do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary. All right, Aaron, we don't have much time, so let's talk about the other 5. Well, the conversation about the other 5 in the National Hockey League North, the Gord Downie division, what we know is that Ottawa's out, Vancouver might as well be out, and Calgary's, hanging by a thread. We believe we know what the playoff matchups will probably look like. Toronto will be playing, of course, Montreal. Edmonton will be playing Winnipeg. To stay away from the Toronto story, Edmonton and Winnipeg have a long history of playing. If you can remember the Gretzky days and the Dale Hawerchuk days, I think Winnipeg fans, as much as the Leaf fans are salivating to play Montreal, I think the Winnipeg fans are salivating to play Edmonton.
Oh, good. I'd love to see a good old-fashioned hammer and tongs matchup between those two. But you're looking at two teams at this point of the season who are traveling in opposite directions. Edmonton in the last 10 games has been 7-3-0. Winnipeg has been 3-7-0. So this is a case of one team going up and the other team coming down, and they're going to meet somewhere in the middle. If this is a first-round matchup, I am there for it.
Yeah, Edmonton, the way it's looking, if you look at statistically alone, Edmonton would have the easier matchup compared to Toronto and Montreal.
Yeah, and at this point here, I'm glad the Leafs are where they are. I am glad that we have spent over 110 days in first place. It's a nice place to be. It's nice watching everybody else fight over the scraps for a change, as opposed to having to bite, scratch, and claw our way into a playoff spot. So that's been a wonderful change. You know what? I will take a Montreal matchup.
Hey, listen, it in my opinion, careful what you wish for is my first rule of thumb. And my second rule of thumb is bring them on, whoever it is, because at the end of the day, Aaron, you got to beat every team in the league. If you don't get the chance to, that doesn't matter. You still got to beat the teams that are left standing. So, right now, whatever team they're up against, they need to bury them quickly and not give them a chance to even consider beating them. In other words, they need to play like the dynamic team that they've proven they've been all season. They've had lulls in their game, but they've been very short-lived. Yes, they've been deep, but they've been very short-lived. This is a team that's been as consistent as any Leaf team, any other Leaf team except for another that finished first a very long time ago.
Now, I would just love to see this team march all the way through to the semifinals and the finals. Their disturbing trend of playing down to their opponents is always a matter of concern. Was there a point during the last game when they were playing Montreal when Montreal scored in the third period and you thought to yourself, "Oh, here we go"?
Well, I know I was getting notifications that said, "Uh-oh, here we go again." Anyway, listen, let's leave it there. Let's talk about the Marlies because they're a very important team. They're fourth in division. The Laval Rocket have clinched the Canadian Championship, and as we understand, the rest of these games are being played basically almost just for fun. For in giggles.
Of the season. The Marlies missed 3-4 weeks there. So they're gonna play the games out as best they can, and from there, it is what it is, right? I mean, this season was not a season that was going to end happily for anybody. There's no Calder Cup to be fought over. It's just divisional titles. So we'll come back in October and try it again then. The one major concern that I have here is the drop off of this team under Greg Moore, and that has been a concern for me. They were doing fine until Keefe left to coach the Leafs, and I'm not sure if there's a curse going on here or what, but Keefe hasn't had a full season with the Leafs yet. Moore hasn't had a full season with the Marlies, and it's just been a bit of a tire fire.
Well, I have my views on that, and but I'll just make it very short, and that is the fact that you have a new coach. There's a learning curve, and the old coach kind of dragged up a few of the best players he had. It's not like there's been there hasn't been. I don't think there's been enough new blood into the Marlies to make up for the old blood that went up and then out to Vancouver specifically. Aaron, we got to go.
Thank you very much for having me, Frank.
Thank you, Aaron, for being on. He's, of course, Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Leaf Talk. Seen live Saturdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Leaf Talk news, entertainment, and more sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm Candid Frank.